You Don't Know Flack.
Thank you, Sergeant Essential. Thank you, Sergeant.
You Don't Know Flack.
Welcome to You Don't Know Flack, a podcast full of stories about retro gaming, retro computing, video games, arcade games, and technology from a guy who was there and still is. My name is Rob O'Hara, but for the next 30 minutes, you can call me Flack.
Episode 133. Ninjas.
Hello and welcome to episode 133 of You Don't Know Flack. Today is Sunday, April 28th, and I am your host, Rob Flack O'Hara. Today we will be talking about ninjas. And this is a very exciting show. I'm very excited to do this show. I've been looking forward to doing this show for a while. So I've put the whole show here on my trusty Commodore 64. You know, I mentioned last week that I was on travel. I'm still on travel. I am in Greensboro, North Carolina. Last week I put the whole show on my SX64 on hundreds and hundreds of floppies. But this week I decided to put it over onto my 1541 that I brought with me, which I really did. And then I have connected to my netbook using a Zoom floppy, which is a USB adapter, more or less, to connect 1541 drives to modern machines using USB. So with that, I will begin loading the podcast, and we have a few things to talk about this week during loading time.
Loading time. Loading time. Loading time.
The first thing I should mention is that the sounds of birds and wildlife that you hear in the background are real. Those are not sound effects added in. I am in a park. I am next to a wildlife preserve of some sort here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Because of today's show, the topic of today's show, which is ninjas, I wanted to get inspired. You know, as a kid, I did a lot of ninja running around, which we're going to hear all about in this episode of podcast. And god dang it, here comes a power walker. Boy, this is going to be stupid. I have parked right next to... Should I make eye contact? I'll make eye contact. Hey. Maybe that's a bad location. So anyway, the idea of this episode was that I would get some inspiration by going out and finding an area a little bit out in nature. But so this area I found is right next to a bunch of trees and forest area and wild birds, as you can hear. But also it's raining just a little bit. And I didn't want to get me or the You Don't Know Flack equipment wet. And so I'm sitting as close as I can to nature from the safety of my car. Which is kind of how I like enjoying nature anyway, looking at it through a window. So anyway, Greensboro, North Carolina. That's a couple things I can tell you. One is that I got to hook up yesterday with my friend Mikey. Mikey is a fellow retro computer enthusiast. He showed me, I know Mikey through some of the online forums that I'm on, and Mikey has a pretty sweet collection of old consoles. He showed me he's got an Atari 2600, he has a Sega Saturn hooked up in his living room, a Turbo Duo, which I have not seen in a long time. The reason that Mike and my paths originally crossed is because we have a common friend, and all three of us were interested in interactive fiction, or text adventures. And Mikey has written several modern text adventures. He does a lot of programming during the day at his job, and so it's just kind of a natural thing to move into interactive fiction. So that's originally how we met. About a month ago, I sold Mikey one of my spare Commodore 64s. and I didn't have a spare disk drive at the time, but he bought a 1541 disk drive off of eBay, but he didn't have any software. So I knew I was coming out to Greensboro. I knew Mikey lived in Greensboro. And I brought with me a 1541 disk drive and my Zoom floppy and a tiny USB stick. I mean, I have a USB stick that's like the size of my thumbnail that holds 32 gig. It has the complete Game-Base 64 collection on it. It has every disc, images of every disc I've ever owned. It has several different Commodore collections. And so we set up shop in his living room yesterday, and we copied several it was like an old school copy fest. If you listen to the episode, the You Don't Know Flack episode about Copy Fest, it was exactly like that. It was two people who had met online, but who had never met in real life before, sitting down and copying Commodore 64 games. And it was really fun. We had a good time talking. The bad news is that we got so carried away in copying Commodore games and trying games out and stuff that we did not get around to recording the skateboarding episode that we had planned on doing. So we're going to set that aside. We'll do that in the near future. But we did have a really good time playing games and copying software. So that was fun. And also, Mikey recommended, I've been doing a lot of shopping here in Greensboro, and he recommended a few different flea markets and thrift stores and things like that for me to hit. And so I have bought, it's a good thing I drove on this trip because the trunk is now half full with, I bought 2 different lunch boxes. I bought a trash can with Mac Tonight from McDonald's on it. It's like copyright 82 trash can. I bought a Scrubbing Bubbles squeeze toy. Don't find those every day. So I've been doing probably more shopping, some shopping out of boredom, but I've been having a good time. And he recommended the Cook's Flea Market, which is Cook's Flea Market is in Winston-Salem, which is just right around the corner from Greensboro. And so I went there, and I was looking for video game stuff, the normal stuff that I look for when I go to flea markets like that. And I ran across this place called the Hip Hop Kung Fu Shop. I love that name. And there was a black guy, probably in his late 40s, maybe early 50s, and I walked into his little shop, and I was immediately taken back to the 80s, the 70s and 80s era of these import chop socky kung fu movies. He had this entire wall. He had some of the movies split out by actors. He said, here's the Jet Li area, here's the Jackie Chan area, this is the Shaolin, Wu-Tang type area. And then he had a separate area of like hip-hop movies and stuff, and I looked through a few of those, some blaxploitation films, and just a super cool little booth. I really dug it. And I didn't end up buying anything because I don't even have a DVD player with me. You know what? That's not true. I have one on my laptop. I guess I could have bought something, but I just went through all the movies, But anyway, it was the Hip Hop Kung Fu Shop. And actually he gave me a flyer that has the URL on it. It is hiphopkungfushop.com. Also on Facebook, he has Hip Hop Kung Fu Shop. So there's a little plug to the Hip Hop Kung Fu Shop guy. If you buy something from him or check out his website, then you can tell him that a random guy passing in the night, well, not the night, it was about 11 o'clock on Saturday. A random guy from Oklahoma wandered into his shop and passed that information on. But anyway, I talked to him for a couple minutes, and he seemed like a cool guy. But a lot of episodes of You Don't Know Flack get sparked by conversations or suggestions, or I'll see something on TV, or I'll remember something, somebody will mention something to me in conversation, and that will spark a memory, and that will lead to a show. And so, as I was looking through his movies, this flood of memories came back. I was really big into ninjas and stuff like that, and I had a lot of ninja stories and ninja-related things, and I thought, this could be a show. And so I went home. it's funny to call your hotel home, but when you've been there for a week, it does start to take on that role. But so I went to the hotel and I grabbed my little loose leaf notebook and I started writing down things, and that's how this episode came to be. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started with episode 133 of You Don't Know Flack, Ninja. I'm pretty sure my first exposure to ninjas came from watching Kung Fu Theater on Channel 34, which was a local UHF channel. During the summers, they would run, I think they just called it Kung Fu Theater, and they would run old bad Kung Fu movies on Saturdays, and so I would watch those. Occasionally, they ran them in 3D. You could go to, I think, 7-Eleven and pick up 3D glasses to watch these old Kung Fu movies. But, these were the old school 60s, 70s type Kung Fu movies, I remember watching those as a kid, but that in itself didn't really lead to anything. Now, I know this may be difficult for some of you to believe, but I actually got picked on quite a bit, actually. As a kid, I was a dorky kid who was not into sports, which most of my neighbors were into sports. I wasn't into a lot of the things they were into. I was into video games and computers, and so I had my little set of friends that were into that, but a lot of the kids that lived right around me in my neighborhood were not into those things. And so around third grade, one of my dad's friends at work, my dad's friends' sons were both in karate. And I don't know if somehow my dad ended up talking to this guy, but what came out of it was that I should probably enroll in karate to learn self-defense. So I did, and I was in karate for probably about 10 years. In fact, I got to the rank of brown belt, so I was in karate for a long time. But when I enrolled in karate, one of our other neighbors worked for Century Martial Arts, and Century Martial Arts is a huge national supplier of accessories for martial arts. They everything from uniforms to belts to workout accessories. And Century Martial Arts is located in Oklahoma City. So this neighbor worked there, and she would get us catalogs from Century Martial Arts. And so I would look through these catalogs, and boy, did I start making a wish list. I mean, there was some cool stuff in there, This is probably the first place where I saw a lot of the weapons and stuff, I guess, that were associated with ninjas. But I would hang on to these catalogs. I have them in my room. Now, my neighbor's older brother, his name is Greg. And I've talked a little bit about Greg in the D&D episode. Greg was the older kid. He was like 3 or 4 years older than us, and so he was kind of in D&D. He was the guy that was, we were dopey kids messing around with basic D&D, and he was the guy that introduced us to AD&D. He was kind of our little neighborhood dungeon master for a little while. But Greg was also into ninjas. Like I said, he was a few years older, so he, I guess, got into ninjas a little bit before the rest of us. And so he had started this little, collection of ninja weapons. He showed us his Chinese stars, and he had a blowgun and all these things. But I saw him one time fully dressed up in his ninja suit, and he looked like a badass. I mean, it completely changed once the mask came on, and it just covered his whole face. You could just see his eyes, and it just changed the entire, it changed everything about him. He looked completely different. And anyway, I was like, oh, that is cool, man. That makes me want to be a ninja. It made me want to be a ninja really bad. Now, this is probably around 6th grade for me. And it's funny how when you think back as the things you're into as a kid, the different fads or whatever, how they overlap a little bit, So what overlapped for me before this time was breakdancing. So when I was, I think in 5th grade, was when the movie Breakin' came out. 4th and 5th grade, Breakin' came out, Beat Street came out, and we had an opportunity to go see the Coca-Cola breakdancers, who came to a local grocery store, and they set up a big stage, and they were breakdancing. And that got me and my friends really into breakdancing. So for a couple of years, we wanted to be breakdancers. And then this ninja thing came along, and our interests began to change. All of a sudden, we did not feel that we would become professional breakdancers at some point in our career. We decided that we may, end up being ninjas. And so, first I started to get a few ninja magazines. There were ninja magazines in the stores. And then at a bookstore, my parents bought me this book. The book is called Ninja, the Invisible Assassins, and it was written by Andrew Adams. And I thought it was a new book at the time, but it turns out, I guess it was around since like the 70s. I got it in the mid-80s. But this book was what got me completely into becoming a ninja. Started down my path of ninjahood. So this book, Ninja the Invisible Assassins, the first 2 chapters talk about the history of ninjas. It talked about how it was, they were all masters of invisibility and hiding and stealth, and it had all the pictures of the secret little ninja hand signals and things like that. Oh man, God, I love that book. I actually have found that book in PDF format, and I have it on my iPad right now. Completely unrelated to this episode, but I have gone through and looked at it, and I mean, there are parts of it that are obviously a little far stretch, a little bit from reality, I would think, but man, I really love that book. There was also an author, I believe his name, obviously I'm in the middle of nature here, I don't have my computer, Ashiva, I believe is right, Ashiva Kim. I'll have to look that up, but Kim also had a bunch of books on ninjutsu, about weapons, about training, all these books and these magazines. I later I got into skateboarding, and skateboard magazines would have these little pictorials like, how do you do an ollie? And it would have, 3 or 4 pictures in a row showing you how to perform a trick. But these books and magazines had things like how to crush your opponent's windpipe. Things that the average, 12-year-old doesn't really need to know. But so you would practice these little techniques in your room. If anybody ever attacked me, windpipe first, I was ready to crush that thing. So, in 6th grade, I'm pretty sure this is 6th grade, I spent the night at my friend Jason's house. And Jason asked me if I'd seen this movie called Enter the Ninja, which I hadn't. And so we watched Enter the Ninja. And Enter the Ninja introduced me to a couple of different things. It introduced me to the concept of ninjas wearing something besides black ninja outfits. In the first few minutes of Enter the Ninja, we see ninjas wearing red suits, white suits, black suits. I believe later on in the training there are guys in blue suits and yellow suits, which, by the way, the whole opening few minutes of Enter the Ninja is about this guy going through, to complete his ninja training. And he's an American, and we don't really know at the time that all the people he is killing are not really being killed. But he's being chased or, pursued through the woods by an entire team of ninjas dressed in red ninja suits. And I thought, who came up with that idea? I mean, there's nothing, unless you're hiding behind what? What would you hide behind in a red ninja suit? A giant robin? An erupting volcano? I guess that would be good camouflage. Other than that, I mean, it's stupid. And then, of course, the good guy, and a throwback to the classic archetype of, the Westerns. I mean, the good ninja is wearing a white ninja suit, which is, worse than red. How are you going to hide in a white ninja suit in the middle of the forest? I'm looking at a forest right now through my car window, and there's nowhere you could hide in a red or white ninja suit. But anyway, so Enter the Ninja introduced me to that, which I thought was really cool, but it also introduced me and the rest of the world to an actor named Sho Kosugi. I used to always say Kosugo, but it's Kosugi. So Sho Kosugi is the real deal. I mean, he came from Japan, and he came to America. He's from Tokyo, and he came to America and started working in films as a stuntman, and he is like, won hundreds of tournaments and things like that. And then he wrote the script, I guess, for Enter the Ninja. And in Enter the Ninja, he plays the bad guy who is against the white ninja from obtaining ninja-ship. And, later on, they're going to battle. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Sho in this show. Because we'll talk about those other two ninja movies shortly, Revenge of the Ninja and Ninja 3, The Domination. But at this point, after seeing this movie, and I didn't really know it at the time, but Enter the Ninja, which was released in 1981, was the movie that sparked the ninja craze in America. And, you started going to flea markets and you would see ninja posters. You started seeing ninja, weapons, ninja everything. And so it was Enter the Ninja that did that. But I decided that I was going to become a ninja. After seeing this movie, I was like, that's it. Screw breakdancing. Breakdancing will never pan out for me as a career path. I'm going to become a ninja. Because, really, if you look at the logistics of it, if you compare, how much money can you make breakdancing at parties versus killing people? Obviously, the money choice is, in ninjutsu, being a ninja assassinations. So, the first thing you need to be a ninja is weapons and a mastery of weapons. And so I circled all these weapons that I wanted in that Centuries Martial Arts catalog and gave it to my parents. And they said they would talk to the neighbor down the street to place an order. And so they did order me some weapons, and this is what I got. Number 1, foam rubber throwing stars that came in green and orange, so you wouldn't lose them. Okay, I'm trying to be a badass ninja here. And I have these foam stars, and I had 4 until our cat chewed one. And then I had 3. So, I'm not going to be able to take on an onslaught of attackers with 3.5 foam throwing stars. The good news is you would never lose them. There was, like I said, they're green and orange. I also got a pair of foam-covered nunchucks. Now, the traditional nunchucks were made out of wood, I guess, with a chain connecting them to, so you had to get that sweet squeaking sound of the chain as you whip these things around your head and your body and inevitably into your own crotch. But the padded ones were connected with a vinyl cord, and they made no such sounds. But I made the same sound when I hit myself in the crotch with them as the other ones. Both hurt, taking them to the ninja balls. I also got a wooden ninja sword. And of all the things that I had, as far as fake weapons, the ninja sword was the best, I think, because it looked like basically the handle looked cool, and it looked like a real sword just in, the scabbard, I guess, in its holder, So I would wrap a belt around me at my waist. We'll get a little bit into my ninja suit here shortly. But I would wrap, a belt around me or something and stick this sword through it. And it looked like you were carrying a real sword. It was only until you pulled it out and they realized that it was all black and very light that it was not a, real sword. But the sword was pretty cool. I will give them that. And then I had this bow and arrow that I want to say was Bear brand. I remember it had a bear on it, and it was bright red with a white string. And then I had a quiver for my arrows on my back. And the arrows that I had were gold colored and aluminum. So as I would run around, it would just be clanging, like clang, 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 not really good, again, for the stealth angle for the assassinations. But it was a real bow and arrow, So in Enter the Ninja, and in all the ninja movies, there are different things that take place using bows and arrows. So I thought that would be an important part of my training. So I had these weapons, and also I had read about caltrops, which are these tiny little pointy things, and they're designed so that when you throw them on the ground, no matter which way they land, there will be a point facing up. And so you would, you could throw these if someone was chasing you, and they were almost like jumping jacks, like the old, or little metal jacks, except for they had sharp points on every side. So, I came up with this idea, and I've heard other people did the same thing, so maybe someone at school told me about this or whatever, but I made my own caltrops out of pencil erasers and straight pins. So you would take a pencil eraser and pull it out, and then, stick 5 or 10 straight pins in all different directions, and then you had your own little caltrop. And I would practice throwing these, and they would stick in my curtains. So I would throw them, or I would throw them, on the carpet, just throw them down and see, I don't know what I was practicing. It doesn't seem like necessarily a move that would take a lot of practice, just throwing something. But I do think I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but I do remember throwing them at the curtains and missing at one point and throwing it out the window and losing some of my caltrops out in the yard, and always worried, I went out and looked for them, I couldn't find them, and I always worried that someday, like, my dad would be mowing or something, or, somebody would be out there and they would step on one of these things. So yeah, I had my little caltrops, and by the way, those were a pain in the ass to carry. I mean, you can't put them in your pocket because then they just stick you repeatedly. So those usually went down in the bottom of the quiver for my arrows, along with the foam Chinese stars, which turned out not to be a good idea, because every time you would reach in to get a Chinese star to throw at somebody, you would find one of the caltrops. So also at that time, I think my parents saw that I was interested in some of these things, but they didn't want to invest a lot of money, because you never know how long one of these fads are going to last. I understand that. So my dad made me a blowgun. He put a mouthpiece thing on it and made these little darts out of like plastic, almost like a plastic like that you would see like on the top of a mustard bottle. By the way, the sound of the podcast is about to change because it is now raining in the sunroof. And so the next sound you hear will be that of the sunroof closing. I would also like to mention that the only two people here in this parking lot are obviously two people that are having an affair. It's a guy in a suit and then a lady, and they have both parked on the other side of the parking lot, and they're in the car, and the car's rocking. So they're also enjoying the sounds of nature and the sounds of the stories of ninjutsu. But anyway, so my dad made me this blowgun, and it worked. It worked really well, and so I would practice shooting things or whatever, and mostly in the house. I remember I got in trouble because my dad had taken these really nice portrait pictures of me and my sister, and another girl that my mom used to babysit, and I would go all the way in the kitchen when no one was home and shoot the blowgun and stick them in the pictures. And then one day, my parents saw that there were holes in the pictures, and I was never really good at denying. Well, obviously, I mean, If there are blowgun holes in something, I'm probably the culprit. So anyway, the second thing that I needed was a ninja suit. I mean, I had all these sweet weapons piling up, but I needed a ninja suit. So I had a black karate gi uniform. I did not have a black belt, but I had just a normal belt, right? So I started putting together my own ninja suit. One thing I had was, well, like I said, I had this karate suit. And then I needed some sweet ninja shoes, or tabai as they were called. If you ever saw them in real life, they were ninja shoes. They were kind of like rubber-soled shoes on the bottom, and they had little hooks that fastened in the back. And they were like a split toe, almost like a pair of flip-flops or sandals. But I didn't have any of those. But what I did have was some regular house shoes and some black socks. And so I put these house shoes on, and then I put the black socks over the house shoes and then tucked the top of the gi into the socks. So I thought that'll work. The other part I needed was a ninja mask. I didn't have one of those either, but I did have a ski mask that was black with the eye holes and the mouth hole. And so I cut the eye holes into an oval shape so that it would look like, a ninja mask, or the eye hole, at least would. And so I assembled my little thing, and then I got just a regular belt that I had from school, just like a normal belt you would wear, and I put that on the outside, and I stuck my sword in there, and I put on my bow and arrow, and I had this floor-length mirror on the back of my bedroom door, and I stood in front of it and looked at myself, and the first thing I remember thinking is that I look like a bloated tick. I looked ridiculous. I mean, it was like this big, plump, black thing that would not strike fear into any opposing ninja or any kid in my neighborhood who ever bullied me, or anyone, really. Circus clowns would not be afraid. Little tiny children would not be afraid of this outfit. I look like a SWAT team member, but like an overinflated one, kind of. It was really stupid. But you know what? It's what I had. And when we were kids, that's what we did. We didn't necessarily have the newest of everything or the best of everything or whatever. I mean, this was, ninjas. You got to make do. If you watch the ninja movies, they have to adapt. They have to do. I'm sure if Sho did not hit it big, he would have made his own ninja suit out of whatever he had. So now that I had my weapons and I had my ninja suit, it was time for some ninja missions. And the first ninja mission I decided to do was to spy on the Toke House. Now, my neighbors had this little metal shed that they called the Toke House, and I had no comprehension at all about drugs. I didn't understand the reference of toking on a joint or anything like that. So I had no idea why this was called the Toke House. All I knew is that all the cool kids would go in there and smoke cigarettes and look at Playboy magazines that they had got from their dad's closets or something. So I had even gone to the Toke House. Like I said, it was a metal shed like that you would put like lawnmowers in and stuff. And they had added enough wood to make it 2 stories. So each story in the Toke House was 3 foot tall. So you would go in and hunch over, and then there was a little trap door, and you move that and you went upstairs, and that's where all the good stuff was, I guess. If you call it the good stuff. And so they would go in there and, stay there for hours. And I decided this was my first mission, was I was going to spy on the Toke House. And so I got on all my ninja gear, and all this stuff. I don't think I had any of my weapons with me, but I have my ninja suit and my house slippers covered in black socks and my SWAT team / ninja mask thing. And I waited until the sun went down and it started getting dark. And there was this little tiny row of evergreen trees. And they were not very tall, more like bushes, I guess you'd say. And there was one every like 5 or 6 feet that ran down this fence. And so, as the sun went down and it got dark, I went and I ran across the street and I got behind one of those little bushes and I started working my way up. And I knew they were in the toke house because I could see the light, coming in from outside. They had run an extension cord out there and had a little lamp. So I got up there and I could get really close, I didn't want to get too close, but I could hear them inside talking. So I was pretty close. And I have no idea what possessed me to do this, but I picked up a rock, like a little piece of gravel, and I threw it. And of course, when it hit the side of that metal, it just went bang, And then I could hear them all running around and then come open the door, and then they're all standing there. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to get my ass kicked in a ninja suit really quick. And I just stayed really still. And they all came out, and they were like, who's out there? And they were looking, scanning everything. And I stayed as still as I could. And then they went back in, and I thought, oh, I got away with it, Lucky me. I should go home and not do that again, right? Wrong. I pick up another rock and I throw it. Bang, and here they come out. And then they started, and this is, there's a similar thing. Maybe this is something that people do, but they started yelling, I know you're there. I can see you, this and that. And I thought, oh, God, they can see me. But the thing is, they couldn't. They really couldn't see me, in the dark and blended in with that little bush. And I just stayed so still. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to throw any more rocks. When they go back in, I'm out of here. And so they went back in, and I stood up and started running home. And then they came right back out. And they were like, I see you. And obviously they knew who it was. There was no one else in my neighborhood that looked like a fat tick running around the neighborhood in a makeshift ninja suit, But it was very exhilarating experience. It was very cool to just blend in, and hide in the night a little bit, I guess. And I thought this art of invisibility stuff, this is working out. These books, I'm learning. I'm becoming a ninja. And so then there was... we used to have a not very nice phrase to describe the knocking on someone's front door and running off. My nieces one time told me that's called a ring and run now. So I will use that terminology from now on. So we had decided to ring and run the neighbor's house. Well, actually, we hadn't decided that at that time. So this is like, 9 or 10 o'clock. And, my neighborhood, all the kids would come out and hang out like on the street corner or next door. And there's a big field between my house and the next door neighbor's house. And we would go hang out and come up with ideas of things to do. And so we had gone on the other side of my neighbor's house, and we were standing in between my next door neighbor's house and the house on the other side of him. And we were trying to come up with, something fun to do. And my neighbor had a visitor over. We'll put it that way. And so they were inside the house, this lady and her visitor. And we were standing around trying to come up with ideas of something, fun to do. And one of the guys in our group decided he would go do a ring and run and not tell us. So he ran around the front of their house, rang the doorbell a bunch of times, and ran off the other direction. So we had no idea. So we're all standing there, in the corner of the house. And what I didn't realize is that the guy had now put on a robe, because apparently he was not wearing any clothes. He had put on a robe and come out and was standing on the front porch. So none of us know that this has happened. so I said, well, maybe, we could go down the block or something. So I walk around the corner, and all of a sudden, and everybody else is behind me. I'm the first person. So I walk around the corner, and I stop, and I look, and about 20 feet away from me is a guy in his robe who is pissed. And he says, "Did you just ring my doorbell?" I'm wearing a ninja suit. I'm not even wearing a good ninja suit. I'm wearing a terrible homemade ninja suit with a wooden sword hanging off my side. And I said, "No, sir." And then he said, "Come here." And I turned around and I ran. And I shouted, "Run." And everybody ran and we scattered. And so everybody took off running in different directions. And like I said, it was dark. And my next door neighbor's backyard was like filled with trees and hedges and evergreens and, just millions of places to hide. And I mean, this is like a half acre probably backyard. And then there was a half acre lot in between that house and my house. So there was a million places to hide. And so at one point our neighbors had raised pigeons. And they had these pigeon coops. And so I dove under this pigeon coop. And here comes this guy. I could see his silhouette from the street light. And he starts shouting. And I knew, I had seen where most of my friends, like some of them were in the evergreen trees. One kid had climbed a tree. One kid was behind this little brick half wall thing, And then there I was. And I was probably the furthest away in this little pigeon coop. So I could see the entire scene. And this guy comes back and he's like, I see you hiding over there. And of course, he didn't know that all of us were back there. He just knew that he had seen me. So he's shouting, "I see you over there. I see you," just, I guess, trying to flush us out or something. And he got really close to this evergreen tree and started, kind of like parting the branches or whatever. And one of my friends was in there and they took off running. And then when he started running, he started shouting, "Hey, hey," and then everybody started running. Everybody just got out of their hiding spot and scrambled. And so I did the same. I turned and I ran, and I crossed that half acre lot, and then between that and my house was a chain link fence. And that may have been the most awesome jump I ever did in my entire life. I mean, at full speed, I ran, I jumped, I just almost hurdled. I mean, I used my hands and cleared this fence and kept running, and I ran all the way around. And then in my front yard, we had these hedges, and I hid behind these hedges, and I could see, I heard all this yelling and stuff. And then eventually that guy went and got in his car, and he drove around the block a few times looking for us. And it was really... And that was scary. It was exciting, but it was scary too, because I thought, this redneck dude wearing only a robe is going to kill us. That guy was not happy to see us. But anyway, so everything about ninjas was like really fun, really kind of exciting, and anyway, one day my next door neighbor said they called me and they said, "Hey, we're having a poker party. Do you want to come over and play poker?" And I was like kind of excited because pretty much I didn't get included in anything like that in my neighborhood. So I was like, yeah, I'll come do that. And so I was really excited. I got, some change from my parents, and it was dark. It was probably 9 or 10 o'clock. I got some change. I put it in a little Ziploc baggie, and put it in my pocket. And so you go out, and like I said, to get to my neighbor's house, you had to walk through this field, and there's no real lights in that area. The street lights are like down on the corners of the block, but not right there. So it's really dark field that you had to cross. So I'm walking over there, and I don't ever remember being really afraid of the dark. But this was kind of a long way to go, and it's pretty dark. So I'm walking across there, and all of a sudden, erupting from the ground is a ninja. And I knew I was dead. I ran. I have never been more scared in my life. I ran. I was screaming. I lost a shoe. I was running as fast as my little fat ass could go. And all I kept hearing behind me was, "It's me, it's Greg. Hey, slow down, it's Greg." And then he finally caught me, and I realized that it was my next door neighbor's older brother, Greg. And so this had been a setup to get me out of my house and into this field. And so, then eventually, of course, I was bawling, and then I look back at all the neighborhood kids are standing next door, and they're all laughing because, this was a whole funny thing. And I still, to this day, get paranoid when I am in the dark like that. Not inside, but outside, like in open spaces where it's really dark. And I think it's related to that day. I mean, when I used to, at our old house, I would go out in the yard, when it was dark and stuff, out to the arcade and back, and I always look over my shoulder. I'm always looking, ahead of me or whatever, and I think it has something to do with that. But that really changed things for me. I mean, that went from, hey, I'm a ninja, crawling around at night and doing stuff, into like almost being afraid of them, and but it changed my perspective of how I looked at them. But anyway, after that, I think Greg felt bad about that, and so he kind of took me under his wing, and I became his little ninja apprentice. And so he had these little training exercises that he would have me do, and one was throwing. They had this like a wooden picket fence, and we would practice throwing stars into it. Now, if you got the good kind, and by the good kind, there was like a Chinese throwing star that had like 800 points all the way around it. I mean, it's basically like throwing a circular saw blade at a piece of wood. I mean, you could throw that at anything anyway, and it would stick. So those were really cool. But what sucked was all the other actual ninja stars, like that you would see in the movies, that were four-pointed. They had some that were swirled, and then some that were just like shaped like a star. But I would go out and practice throwing those into wood that was rotten, and they would bounce off. This is wood I could walk up to as a 12 or 13-year-old and stick my finger into. And I couldn't get these damn stars to stick in them, So, and if you watch ninja movies, in Revenge of the Ninja, which I'll talk about here in just a second, but in the very beginning, there's a ninja that throws a star and embeds it halfway into a guy's head. I mean, that is through bone. That is halfway into someone's head, through his skull, into his brain. And I couldn't stick one into this damn rotting wood. So, that's when I thought maybe this ninja thing might not work out as a long-term career goal for me. But I was willing to try. We also did blowgun training. And so he had his dart gun, his blowgun, and he had not a homemade one like mine. He had one that you bought, and it had the darts were like these long, just like a long needle, and then they were attached to like a big orange bead. And so you would put it in the blowgun, and obviously just point and blow with your mouth, and you would be amazed at how fast these things went, and they would stick into anything. And so I remember when he first showed it to me, he told me to take the blowgun and then put a dart in there, which I did. And then he said, take a deep breath. And when I did, my mouth was too close to the blowgun, and I ended up sucking the dart directly into my teeth. So it was like I had shot it in reverse. And to this day, I'm very self-conscious about choking on things. I used to have nightmares about that, because I think if I hadn't had my teeth a little bit more open, that would have went right into my windpipe. And I don't know if you can dig out a dart like that out of someone's windpipe, or what happens if you swallow, a 6-inch deadly ninja weapon. But probably not good things, So it probably was a good idea that my parents had bought me these foam stars, because I wasn't doing so good with the real weapons. But so anyway, in 1982, Revenge of the Ninja came out. That was the second Ninja movie. So it had already been out before I had started a lot of this, but I hadn't seen it yet. So Revenge of the Ninja stars Sho Kosugi. And in this one, he is the good guy. Within the first few minutes of this, his entire family gets killed by evil ninjas. Okay, now I'm going to have to actually roll the window up more because it's now raining inside the car. So, bye-bye, wonderful sounds of nature. So anyway, I wonder if I could move my car into an area that's not getting rained on. Okay, so I have now moved the car underneath a bunch of trees so it is not raining, and I've opened I have to dry the rain off the... Podcasting on location is hard, folks. I don't know if you know that, but this is a bunch of crap. It's not raining on the damn car. I got water everywhere. I'm running out of iced coffee. I don't know if you can hear that. Lots of technical issues to overcome on this one, but we're going to power through. You know why? Because we are freaking ninjas. All right. So, Revenge of the Ninja. We've got Sho Kosugi back, this time in a starring role. And his entire family gets slaughtered. He is a Japanese businessman, and his American friend wants him to come to America. And I would love, you know what? I would love for either this or the third Ninja film, Ninja 3: The Domination, to show up on an episode of Throwback Reviews, and then to get me on there as a guest, because these are some of my favorite, not just ninja movies, but 80s movies. I love these two movies. And if they don't want to watch the movies, I will perform them with sock puppets, and I know every line to every movie, so we can do that. But anyway, so, I think my parents at this point realized that this was more than just a passing fad, that I was going to be into ninjas for a while, and so for my birthday, they got me a ninja suit. And I opened this box, and there's my ninja suit, and it was so cool. And then my parents did that cool trick that you play on your kids. My dad says to me, "Hey, where are the shoes? Doesn't it come with shoes?" And I'm like, "No, it doesn't come with tabi. You have to get those separately." And he's like, "Oh, here, open this." And I open it, and there's my frickin' ninja shoes. And I'm like, "Yes, God, they're so awesome." And I would put those on. I would wear those around my house while wearing shorts. Just, a t-shirt and shorts and these ninja boots. They were so freaking awesome. I love those things. And I had a real ninja mask now. So, I also got a ninja sword, which was some sort of the blade was like this aluminum that couldn't be sharpened, so it didn't have a blade on it, but it was heavy, and also, it was sharp. The point, it didn't have a blade, but it had a sharp point on it. So I was not so much with the cutting, but more with the stabbing. I was like a stabbing type ninja. So anybody, I could do parties for shish kebabs, or stabbing people through things. I don't know. Doesn't seem that useful of a technique now in retrospect. But I got that. I got some real Chinese stars, so now this is all coming together, that I'm actually becoming really a young trained assassin at the age of, I don't know. I'm probably 13 or 14 at this point, I guess. And, I began with this stuff doing more training missions, I called them, where I would sneak out, at night, like sneak out of my window, and I wouldn't necessarily do anything. Like I would just sneak around the neighborhood, like, walk down a thing of trees or walk behind people's fences and stuff. And then if I saw cars, I would make sure I hid. So in my mind, I was training for something. I'm not really sure. The Ninja Olympics, maybe? I don't know. And, during this time, there's also a lot of influences that we see in pop culture from ninjas. That you got these ninja movies coming out. In Wizardry, which is one of the first computer role-playing game that I ever played, the first dungeon crawler type game, you could make ninjas. You could, if you had the right stats or whatever, you could take characters later and promote them into ninjas. When I was in 7th grade, I met my friend Lewis, and he introduced me to... I was already into advanced Dungeons & Dragons, but he had the Oriental Adventures book. And the Oriental Adventures took Dungeons & Dragons, but in an Oriental setting. And so, instead of like paladins, you had samurai, and ninjas were kind of a cross between a thief acrobat type character. But so anything that had ninjas in it like that, I was kind of into, but I was also, I'll talk a little bit about this here in a few minutes, but I was kind of a ninja snob, if you will. This is stupid, but I didn't like things that I thought were piggybacking on to the ninja deal, but weren't true, so this is I'm like the ninja emo, the original emo ninja. I didn't like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because I thought it was just kind of almost like a parody of ninjas. And what I hated, Three Ninjas, those movies where it was 3 little kids and they were training to be ninjas or whatever. I hated those movies. I think I was probably a little too old for them anyway when they came out, but just that idea that, I thought I saw a ninja out in the woods. It's a bird. But yeah, I hated Three Ninjas. I hated anything like that I thought was just on, piggybacking on ninjas that didn't actually, show true ninjas, I guess, if you will. About this time, and this is mid 80s now, I saw Ninja 3: The Domination. Ninja 3: The Domination is a fun movie. And it's kind of like Enter the Ninja is the first one. And Enter the Ninja introduces you to ninja, the whole idea of ninja culture, the training, all these things like that. That's Enter the Ninja. Revenge of the Ninja takes it to the next level. It's a little crazy, but in Revenge of the Ninja, you get to see, Revenge of the Ninja is where we see the Ninja Star belt buckle for the first time. We get to see all these, cool types of things or whatever. Then the third one is Ninja 3: The Domination. And Ninja 3: The Domination, again, if Throwback Reviews wants to do Revenge of the Ninja or Ninja 3: The Domination, I'm ready tonight. I'm ready to go. I don't need to watch it as a brush up. I'm ready. And Ninja 3: The Domination stars Lucinda Dickey. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but apparently Lucinda Dickey was a big solid gold dancer. Most people know Lucinda Dickey from her role in Breakin' and Breakin' 2 as Kelly, a.k.a. Special K, who is the main female star of Breakin' and Breakin' 2. And she got to use some of her dance moves. Obviously, she was not a break dancer like Turbo and Ozone. But, so she had gone from Solid Gold, and then she had been in these Breakin' movies, and I guess there was some sort of, you know how it is, movie producers wanting to pull in current fads and stuff, and so I guess they got Lucinda Dickey to star in Ninja 3: The Domination. And by the way, if there was any girl that I was in love with more at that time, this girl was in Breakin' and she was in Ninja 3: The Domination. So she's a break dancer and a ninja. So I don't know what you're looking for in a future wife, That's a combination that's hard to beat right there. So, in Ninja 3, The Domination, I'm going to ask that you do this. I want you to go, I will add a link in the show links, in the show notes. I would like you to go to YouTube and look up the opening sequence from Ninja 3, The Domination. And I'm not sure how long the first, I mean, it's probably less than 10 minutes. But in the beginning of this movie, and I don't want to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it. I don't have to say there's spoilers for a 1983 ninja movie. But if you go, this ninja goes down, and the first thing he does is there's a some sort of famous person, a doctor or something, and he's out golfing. And so the bad ninja in Ninja 3 kills this guy, kills his girlfriend. He has 2 bodyguards, and he kills the bodyguards. And then somebody stumbles across the body. They call the LAPD, who shows up. And this guy proceeds to kill at least 50 cops. And whereas Revenge of the Ninja is... obviously, a ninja-type movie is always going to be a little outlandish, a little, pushing the boundaries of reality as far as jumping up and down 50-foot, ledges or things like that. And there's parts towards the end of Revenge of the Ninja where you go, really? Like, there's a part in Revenge of the Ninja where the good guy is chasing the bad ninja, and the fight has now escalated to the roof of a high-rise building. So, I mean, nobody knew that the fight was going to go there. So, the fight's just there. They have escalated things, and now they're on the roof of this building. And the evil ninja has hidden. It's almost like that scene in Empire Strikes Back where Luke is hiding near the end and Darth Vader is walking around looking for him, And it's the same kind of thing where, so the good ninja is walking around, and at some point he's going to stumble across the bad ninja, he's going to jump out and they're going to fight. And so as he walks by this, it's either a swimming pool or a hot tub. I think it's a swimming pool. This hand jumps out and grabs him. It's obviously the bad ninja. And so the good ninja goes, ah! And he pulls his sword out and he cuts this arm. He slices the arm. And then what we realize is that it's a robotic arm. And that you can see, the wires and everything. So if you think about the level of bullshit involved in that, like, somehow, that puts MacGyver to shame. Like, someone's chasing you and you disappear for 30 seconds. I want you to look around right now. I don't even care. I don't care if you're in a robotics factory right now. You look around and think, in 30 seconds, could you build a human-looking arm that's robotic, that works underwater, that would jump up and grab? Just the level of ridiculousness, So it starts a little bit, I should say, in Revenge of the Ninja. But in Ninja 3, The Domination... in the first 30 seconds of this fight, one of the bodyguards pulls out his revolver to shoot the ninja, and the ninja pulls out his blowgun and fires a dart, and it goes into the barrel of the revolver, and then the revolver blows up in the guy's hands. And when the golfer tries to kill the ninja, he hits the ninja, he's going to strike him with a golf club, and the ninja blocks it, and the golf club wraps around his arm. And so then they're like, which is what I would say if I tried to hit somebody with a golf club and it wrapped around their arm. But what always struck me about that scene, even as a kid, is that obviously, and this ninja is it's not like he's one of these ninjas where he only wants to maim people. He doesn't want to kill them. This guy wants to kill everybody. So by blowing the dart into the revolver, I mean, that's an intentional thing. If it were unintentional, I mean, it would have been much easier for him to blow a dart in the guy's eyeball and kill him instantly, you know? So the fact that he did that into the revolver, I mean, basically they were just showing that it's something that he could do. That's how good he was. But what a ridiculous thing to do. So anyway, as the opening, 10 minutes go, basically the entire LAPD, is after this ninja now. And after he kills the first wave of cops, then they send out everybody. During this chase, the ninja climbs a palm tree, grabs onto an LAPD helicopter, kills there's a rifleman up there who's shooting at the ninja and the pilot. He kills both of them, jumps out of the helicopter into a pond, uses his blowgun as a breathing device. It's one of the most ridiculous. I mean, there is ridiculous things in movies, and especially in ninja type movies, but not typically in American ninja type movies. Usually we saw that from imported type, the chop sucky Chinese 70s type theater. But this is ridiculous. I mean, this is, and another thing that always bothered me about the opening of this movie, and like I said, I'm not giving the whole movie away, this is the first 10 minutes, is that when the LAPD finally, track down the ninja and they find him, they stand in a circle of like 10 officers, all of them with rifles and shotguns. So the ninja's in the middle. There are 10 police officers surrounding the ninja in a circle, and they're all shooting shotguns at him with a radius of about 20 feet, which really means they're shooting at other police officers 20 feet away with shotguns. It's one of the craziest scenes in movie history, and one of my favorite things about that scene, too, is at one point they shoot him and he flails up into the air and lands on his back. And later throughout the movie, you're going to see this scene several times in flashbacks. And when they show it in flashbacks, it's different. They must have shot that scene several times. But the way that he jumps into the air, and I mean, at one time, like both of his feet go in the air, and one time just one leg goes in the air. But every time they show the flashback, it's a little different, so... just a very good, like, if you want to find out what 80s ninja craze was about, look up Ninja 3 The Domination. The whole movie's on YouTube. Watch the first 10 minutes of that, and if you're not hooked, then I will go find that old sword and come stab you, because that is a great movie. But anyway, we also, as I mentioned, ninjas in general, were finding their way into pop culture. I gotta close the GD sunroof again. So these movies were released, all three of these ninja movies were released earlier than what I actually thought. I think they were released earlier than I was exposed to them. They were released a year apart, 81, 82, 83. I know that my copy of Ninja 3 The Domination that I had for years was taped off of HBO, so I probably saw it in 84 or 85, something like that. But because you have this giant influence of ninjas, and what's the target audience for ninja movies? I mean, it's teenage boys, basically, I would think. Another thing that typically targets teenage boys is video games. And so one of the earliest ninjas I remember seeing in video games was the bad guy in Bruce Lee. In the Bruce Lee video game, we had it on the Apple II and the Commodore 64. You were Bruce Lee, and you ran around getting these little lanterns, but you were chased by a sumo wrestler, a green sumo wrestler, and a ninja. So I remember seeing that, and then on the Commodore, there was The Last Ninja, and you were the last ninja of your clan, and you had to run around. I always thought it was weird. Anytime you see something called The Last Ninja, and then there are other ninjas in it, it makes you wonder a little bit, but there was Last Ninja 2, Last Ninja 3, and then we had Shinobi. And as I've mentioned on some of the other, on the arcade-related podcasts, I first played Shinobi at the local bowling alley, and I fell in love with it. I think 16-bit arcade games is probably, that 2D but detailed graphics are probably my favorite. I love 8-bit games, don't get me wrong, but I think some of those 16-bit games with the really detailed characters and stuff, I really enjoy those. And I just have never fully embraced 3D type games. I think that's my era, is 8-bit, 16-bit. And when Shinobi came out, it was like everything I loved all in one place. It was ninja stuff. It was arcade games. You had the bonus game where you threw ninja stars shrieking at ninjas. You had ninjas wearing all different colors. Blue ninjas, red ninjas, green ninjas. I just love that game. And so when I originally set out to begin collecting arcade games, and I've mentioned this, I made a list of the top 10 games that I wanted to own, and Shinobi was on that list. And Shinobi is, let's see, elevator action. It's definitely one of the first 3 or 4 games that I owned. And I have owned 3 different Shinobi cabinets. I told you in the other episode that I had the what the hell is this guy? He has pulled bumper to bumper to me. And, and there they go. Well, these people are bringing their... Oh, they're taking their dogs for a run. In the ring. Hi, would you like to be interviewed about ninjas? He does not want to be interviewed about ninjas. There's no way that guy has ever seen a ninja movie, and I'm pretty sure I could crush his windpipe. Not his wife's, though. She looks pretty strong. She's got 3 dogs, too. The fun of recording in Ninja Nature Park, Greensboro, Arkansas. So anyway, Shinobi. I've mentioned that I owned 3 different Shinobis. I had the Shinobi that had the sound problems. The original one that had no sound because of the suicide battery had leaked acid onto the board. And then I owned I sold that one. Then later I bought another Shinobi, and I was so worried about the battery leaking and doing that problem again that I bought a 3rd Shinobi. So I had got rid of the first Shinobi. So technically later on, the second one was really just my first Shinobi at that time. And then I had what I called my backup Shinobi, which I found for like $100. So it's not like I was obsessed with owning copies of Shinobi. But would those people shut up? I am talking about ninjas over here. They're walking on dogs. I swear to God, if I had a ninja suit right now, I would go follow these people. I would just hide behind a bush, and then I would crush their dog's windpipe. So anyway, why would you bring your dogs to come out and walk in the rain? These people are morons. God. Anyway, I like Shinobi. We covered that. There were some... Oh, there's the phone. Don't put the phone on mute. Oh, sorry. R2's got a text message for me. This is why I'm not a ninja. I'm not so good at the multitasking. I'm not focused. When you're going to kill somebody, you got to be able to focus. You can't be sidetracked by people walking their dog. Later generations, there was a Shinobi remake, not a remake, but a re-release Shinobi game on PlayStation 2 or 3. I think it was 2. I could be wrong on that. I didn't play much of it. It was not really, like the Shinobi that I remember. There was also Tenchu, and there was a few of those games for the original PlayStation. That was more about stealth and things, and I did like those. I did enjoy playing those. 8-bit days, retro days, I played Kid Nicky Radical Ninja, which was not very related to ninjas, and there was Ninja Commando too. What else? like I said, there were a lot of goofy type arcade games that tried to get on that ninja craze. There was a ninja baseball game, which was, it's funny now, but back then I wasn't into it. Ninja Clowns was another one. And so with these types of episodes, there's always an Act 3, and that is where I talk about what happened. Like, why did I get out of this sort of thing, or why am I no longer interested in it? And for this episode, I mean, it's pretty cut and dried. I turned 16, and I got a car. And suddenly, sneaking around my neighborhood wearing black pajamas and split-toed shoes didn't seem that much exciting. I wanted to drive to arcades. I wanted to, go visit my friends and go hang out, and I got a job. And so I didn't really have the time to pursue my ninja interests at that point in time. I had to give it a little break. I would say that breakdancing as a fad, hobby, whatever you want to call it, gave way to my ninja era. And then the ninja thing, I think, gave way to skateboarding. And so I may, I'll get into the skateboarding more when we do our skateboarding episode about skateboarding games. But that's kind of what killed the ninja thing for me, was just, moving on, getting a little bit older. I realized that being a ninja as a career was probably not going to pan out for me as a career choice. And so instead I got a job at Mazio's Pizza and began making pizzas, which was nowhere near as much fun as I might imagine tracking down red and blue and yellow ninjas would be. But, pizza's pizza, right? So the last part of this episode I want to talk about, and I think I've told this story, probably not in this context, but I have talked about this on the podcast before. When I moved out of my parents' house, I got an apartment, which was the sleaziest little... It really wasn't that bad, but if you go there now I'm afraid to drive through it. I mean, it has really taken a turn for the worse. But I got this little apartment. To give you an idea, I want to say it was probably 500 or 600 square foot at the most. My rent, and this was in 93, I'm going to say 92, 93. 92, I guess. My rent was $300 a month with all bills paid. So all my utilities were in that, and that included my electricity and basic cable for $300 a month. So that gives you an idea of what this place was like. And so the apartment complex was located next to this video rental store named Kaleidoscope Video. And I've talked about Kaleidoscope Video before on the show. After I lived there for a few months, my friend Andy moved in with me. And so Andy and I would walk over to this place, this Kaleidoscope Video, and rent movies. They also rented Nintendo games. And so we would rent Nintendo games, rent movies, and they had a huge horror section and a huge martial arts type section, which was full of, 70s and 80s kung fu films, ninja films, things like that. And what's funny too is because this place also, it was like 2 rooms, and the entire second room was porn. It was adult films. And whenever we would walk in, the guy would, every time we walked in, the guy would say, "Hey, the porn's in the back." And we never rented porn over there. All we wanted to do was rent Nintendo games and ninja movies. And, so it's funny that that's what he'd always assumed when he saw us, that that's what we were there to do. I wish we were those guys. I wish we had been those guys that were there every Friday night renting porn. But instead we were renting Super Mario Brothers, and Ninja Theater. So we went over there, and that is the place where I really got exposed to all these weird, lesser known type ninja movies. And so fast forward a few years, Kaleidoscope Video went out of business, and I drove by. It's not far from the FAA, and I had driven by there, and I saw the sign that said they were going out of business, and then they had a sign that said all movies on sale for like $10 or something. And I thought, even back then, $10 for a VHS movie, it probably wouldn't have been. I mean, these are movie rentals, ex-movie rentals, so they're not in great condition. But, I thought, I don't know, just $10 is not going to bring me in the door, And then the next week I drove by and it said, going on a business sale, all movies 99 cents. And that will get me in the door. I will buy anything for 99 cents. I bought a Macintosh, like the old Macintosh Plus, that didn't work for 99 cents. I will buy crap for 99 cents, so don't kid yourself. I would buy foam Chinese stars right now for 99 cents and may go onto eBay and do that after this episode. So I went in and, it had been several years, so there was no one in the store that I recognized. But I recognized the movies. And, of course, the thing that gets sold in that a lot of times is the new releases, the hit films. That's what people wanted, That's what you'll pay $10 for. So what was left was my kind of stuff. And so this is true. I bought the martial arts section and the horror section. I had a credit card, and I said, I want those shelves, and I want those shelves. And, I don't remember what I paid. I'm going to say it was over 200, but less than 300. So 200 and something movies. I had a pickup at the time, and so we boxed up movies, and, I'm sure they thought I was a dealer or a distributor or whatever, but no, I was just a jackass that liked horror movies and ninja movies. And so over the years, I've got rid of most of the horror movies, mainly just because they were released later on DVD. So I remember having things like, The Exorcist and Salem's Lot, and I got the entire collection of Faces of Death. I have Faces of Death. I think in reality, there's really only like 3 Faces of Death, and then once you get to 4, 5, 6, they're kind of like best of Faces of Death type things. But I have like 6 or 7. I have all the Faces of Death videos. Just this amazing collection of crap that probably would have been better off in a landfill. But the stuff that never made it to DVD, and I've looked, and if I can't find it in news groups or peer-to-peer or any place like that, because once I have something like that, like I have a movie, I don't want to get rid of it, even if I'll never watch it again or whatever. It's something about it'll drive me crazy. Like I'll turn it loose and I'll say, boy, I was really going to watch Faces of Death 5 when I probably wasn't, but I get that stuck in my head, So I bought from Walmart one of those VHS 2 DVD recorders, and so I began dubbing off all these things. But some of the ninja movies that I bought, Master Ninja, which was a TV show that Kusogi was involved in. And I have like 8, I think, of those, 6 or 8 Master Ninja tapes. Some of the ones I remember off the top of my head, remember I'm, 1,000 miles away from my house and my stuff. I know I had Ninja the Protector, Ninja Terminator, which was a good one. That's another type of movie where they would play on something else in pop culture, put Terminator in that title. Ninja Champion, which is a great movie if you're into bad movies. That's a Godfrey Ho movie. Godfrey Ho is infamous in the business for buying up, I don't know if it's stock footage or just footage from Chinese, Japanese type martial arts films. And then almost like what they did with the original Power Rangers, where they would take overseas footage and then, cut it with American actor footage and try to piece it together in some sort of semblance of a plot. But really, I don't think Godfrey Ho really cared about coming up with a plot. He would just, his storylines are so bizarre, and Ninja Champion is one of the weirdest movies that I've ever seen. It's a girl, it's kind of like a revenge type movie where she's been raped and now she's like smuggling diamonds, and there's ninja. It is a crazy ass movie, Ninja Champion, if you're into bad movies. I haven't looked, maybe it's on YouTube. There's another one I had called Duel to the Death that I remember, which is that's another crazy. At one point there's all these ninjas and they like join together like Voltron to make a big giant fighting ninja. There's just some crazy ass stuff in Duel to the Death, and there's so many of these movies out there. I wish that I could dedicate, my wife won't watch them. My kids are too young really to appreciate bad cinema and enjoying the good. I like things that are so bad that they're good. I don't think that they get that yet. There's just so many of those movies or whatever, and I still have a bunch of these Ninja VHS tapes in my garage that I need to finish converting over to DVD and seeing what's out there, so anyway, I think that pretty much wraps up the topic of ninjas, the little slice of my life that was dedicated to the hopeful dream of becoming a ninja, and instead I ended up in the IT profession. So what can you do? Not everything pans out, right? Sometimes our dreams do not work out. But, God, you know what? When this episode's over, I'm going right back to my hotel room. I'm firing up iMain, and I'm going to go play Shinobi right now. So, with that in mind, this is going to bring episode 133 to an end. Thank you guys for hanging with me while I'm on the road here. Like I said, I know these episodes are a little wacky, a little crazy, something a little different. The Zoom H2 mic on the last episode, by recording to WAV and with the new SD card, there was no noticeable artifacts, so I stayed with the same configuration, and we'll see. Hopefully this one does as well. With next week's episode, I should be back home in Oklahoma. I have a couple of different ideas planned. One for, I still want to do an episode on backmasking and audio. I've got some really cool stuff to share on that. I've got some other ideas, but I need your ideas too. So if you have show ideas, anything you want to hear about, old technology, old games, old computers, anything like that, send me an email to robohara@robohara.com. I'll see what I can do about fitting those in. You could call the voicemail box. I have one voicemail box message that I haven't squeezed into an episode yet, but I will do that with the next episode. But that wraps up episode 133, so thank you, and I am going to, you know what, screw this rain. I'm not going to go play video games. I'm going to go hunt those people down with their dogs and go break their windpipes right now. If I'm not around for episode 134, it's because I have been arrested by the Greensboro police for pretending to be a ninja in the woods. But I see them. They're off in the woods. Here I go. Later.
How can he be a ninja?
He lived for 20 years in Japan. He trained Kogaryu style ninjutsu.
We've got to stop him. I'll call Lieutenant Dime.
This is no job for the police. It's something I'll have to do. Only a ninja can stop a ninja.